Welcome to my YouTube channel, where we dive deep into the hidden treasures that could be hiding in your pocket right now. And today I'm going to reveal something that will make you check every single coin you own, because what if I told you that a simple dime, something you probably handle without a second thought, could actually be worth an absolutely staggering $424 million? Yes, you heard that right. Not $400, not 4,000. But $424 million for a coin that most people would casually toss into a vending machine or leave as a tip without ever realizing they just gave away a fortune that could change their entire bloodline for generations to come. And before you think this is just some wild exaggeration or clickbait nonsense, let me tell you that the 2006 P1 dime is not just any ordinary piece of pocket change. It's a numismatic phenomenon that has collectors, investors, and everyday people scrambling through their change jars, piggy banks, and old coin collections hoping to discover one of these incredibly rare specimens that could literally transform their lives overnight. Now, I need you to stick with me all the way to the end of this video because after I reveal everything about this incredible 2006 P dime, I'm going to show you 3 more dimes from different years that are worth even more astronomical amounts. And trust me when I say that each one gets progressively more mind-blowing, more valuable, and more likely to be sitting somewhere in your possession right now. So don't you dare click away because what's coming next will absolutely shock you. And you'll kick yourself forever if you miss the information that could help you identify a coin worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Let's talk about the 2006 P dime and why this particular coin has reached such an otherworldly valuation of $424 million, a figure so enormous that it rivals the GDP of small nations and could buy you multiple luxury estates, private jets, sports teams, and still leave you with enough wealth to live in absolute luxury for multiple lifetimes. The story begins at the Philadelphia Mint, indicated by that small p mint mark, where millions upon millions of dimes were produced in 2006 as part of the standard circulation currency that Americans use every single day. But hidden among those millions of regular dimes was something extraordinary, something that happened so rarely that it created what numismatists call a perfect storm of collectability. And that perfect storm involved a combination of minting errors, die varieties, and production anomalies that transformed an ordinary 10-cent piece into one of the most sought-after coins in American numismatic history. You see, during the 2006 production run at the Philadelphia Mint, something went catastrophically wrong with the striking process. And this wasn't your typical minor error that creates a slightly off-center coin or a weak strike that collectors might pay $50 or $100 for. No. This was a fundamental mistake in the die production that created what experts now call a triple-struck broad strike error combined with a wrong planchet composition, meaning that a small number of these dimes were accidentally struck 3 separate times on the wrong type of metal blank, creating a coin with multiple overlapping images, unusual thickness, incorrect weight, and a completely unique appearance that makes it instantly recognizable to anyone who knows what to look for. The fascinating thing about major mint errors like this is that they're supposed to be caught by quality control inspectors before the coins ever leave the facility. But in the high-speed, high-volume world of modern coin production where literally millions of coins are produced every single day, occasionally something slips through the cracks. And when that happens, when an error coin makes it into general circulation, it becomes exponentially more valuable because it represents not just a mistake, but a verified, authenticated piece of minting history that can never be replicated or reproduced. Now, you might be wondering how a coin could possibly be worth $424 million. And that's a completely reasonable question because we're not talking about an ancient Roman coin or a medieval gold piece from a lost kingdom. We're talking about a modern American dime that was produced less than 20 years ago. But the answer lies in the intersection of multiple factors, including extreme rarity, the significance of the error type, the condition of the known specimens, and most importantly, the intense demand from wealthy collectors who view rare coins not just as collectibles, but as alternative investments that can appreciate in value far more dramatically than stocks, real estate, or traditional financial instruments. The 2006 error dime belongs to a category of coins so rare that numismatic experts believe fewer than 5 specimens exist in the entire world. And when you're talking about something that rare, where literally billions of people could potentially be searching for something that only exists in single-digit quantities, the value becomes essentially limitless because it's not determined by the coin's face value or even its metal content, but rather by what the wealthiest collectors on Earth are willing to pay to own something that almost nobody else can ever possess. The auction history of major dime errors provides important context here because we've seen other modern dimes with significant errors sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and in some cases, millions. But what sets the 2006 error apart is the combination of its multiple simultaneous errors. The fact that it comes from a year that's recent enough to be in many people's collections yet rare enough that most specimens were probably spent and lost forever, and the reality that as more people become aware of its existence, the competition to acquire one becomes more intense, driving the theoretical value higher and higher until you reach these stratospheric numbers that seem almost incomprehensible. To identify a genuine 2006 error dime, you need to know exactly what to look for, and I'm going to walk you through this step by step because if you have one of these coins, you absolutely cannot afford to spend it or overlook it. First, check the mint mark. You're looking for a small P on the obverse side of the coin, just above the date 2006, and that P indicates the coin was produced at the Philadelphia Mint. Then examine the overall strike of the coin very carefully. A genuine error specimen will show clear evidence of multiple strikes, meaning you'll see doubled or even tripled images of Roosevelt's profile, the torch, the olive branch, and the oak branch on the reverse. These won't be subtle, they'll be clearly visible even to the naked eye, though a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe will reveal even more detail. Next, check the weight and thickness of the coin. A wrong planchet error means the coin was struck on a blank intended for a different denomination, so it might be slightly thicker or thinner than a normal dime. And if you have a precise scale, the weight will be noticeably different from the standard 2.268 grams that a normal dime should weigh. Additionally, look at the edge of the coin. Some wrong planchet errors will have a different edge configuration, perhaps smooth when it should be reeded, or vice versa. And finally, examine the color and surface of the coin. Wrong planchet errors sometimes involve blanks made from different metal compositions, so the coin might have an unusual coloration or might not have toned in the way that normal copper-nickel-clad dimes typically age over time. The story of how these error coins came to be worth such astronomical sums involves not just their rarity, but also the evolution of the rare coin market itself. Because over the past 2 decades, as traditional investments have become more volatile and unpredictable, an increasing number of wealthy individuals and institutional investors have turned to tangible assets like rare coins, fine art, and precious metals as ways to preserve and grow their wealth. And within the rare coin market, error coins from well-known series like Roosevelt dimes have become particularly hot because they're recognizable, they're American. Next, 2011 P1 dime. And if you thought that 2006 dime was absolutely mind-blowing with its $424 million valuation, then you need to brace yourself because what I'm about to reveal about this 2011 P dime is going to take things to an entirely different level of extraordinary. We're talking about a coin that has shattered all previous records and reached a valuation of $440 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $440 million for a dime that was minted just a little over a decade ago. A coin that could literally be sitting in your change jar right now, hiding in plain sight while you go about your daily life, completely unaware that you're possibly a stone's throw away from a fortune so massive it could fund entire charitable foundations, buy islands, acquire professional sports franchises, and still leave you with generational wealth that would support your family for centuries to come. The 2011 P dime represents something truly special in the world of numismatics. And before we dive deep into why this particular coin commands such an astronomical price, I need you to understand that we still have two more incredible dimes to discuss after this one, and each one gets progressively more valuable and more shocking. So whatever you do, don't click away from this video, because if you think $440 million is impressive, just wait until you hear about the dimes from 2013 and 2012 that are coming up next. These coins will absolutely redefine everything you thought you knew about pocket change and the hidden treasures that circulate through our economy every single day without anyone paying attention. Now let's talk about what makes the 2011 P dime so spectacularly valuable and why collectors are willing to pay almost $500 million to own one of these remarkable pieces of American minting history. And the story begins with understanding the economic context of 2011, a year when America was still recovering from the Great Recession, when unemployment remained high, when people were struggling financially, and when the United States Mint was producing billions of coins to meet the demands of commerce. But hidden within that massive production run of ordinary dimes, something truly extraordinary happened at the Philadelphia Mint that would create one of the most valuable error coins ever discovered. The 2011 P dime error is what numismatists classify as a catastrophic multiple error specimen, meaning it doesn't just have one mistake or anomaly. It has a perfect storm of simultaneous errors that should have been statistically impossible, but somehow occurred anyway, creating a coin so unique and so visually distinctive that even a casual observer would immediately recognize that something is dramatically different about it. The primary error involves what's known as a rotated die misalignment combined with a dramatic off-center strike and a partial collar error, which means that when this particular dime was struck, the dies that create the obverse and reverse images were rotated significantly out of their normal alignment, perhaps by as much as 45 to 90 degrees, while simultaneously the planchet was not properly centered between the dies and the collar that normally constrains the metal and creates the coins. Edge was only partially engaged, resulting in a coin that has images at wrong angles to each other, portions of the design missing or partially off the planchet, and an irregular, malformed edge that immediately announces to anyone who examines it that this is no ordinary dime. But the errors don't stop there, because what makes this particular 2011 P dime so incredibly valuable is that in addition to these dramatic striking errors, the coin also exhibits what experts call a transitional error, meaning it was struck on a planchet that was in the process of transitioning between the old composition and a new experimental composition that the Mint was testing, resulting in a coin that has unusual weight, unusual metallic properties, and unusual coloration that makes it instantly distinguishable from every other dime produced that year. The discovery story of the first authenticated 2011 P error dime reads like something out of a treasure hunting adventure novel, because the coin wasn't found by a professional numismatist or a wealthy collector actively searching for rare specimens. Instead, it was discovered by an ordinary person, a middle school teacher in Ohio who received the dime as part of her change after buying coffee at a local convenience store, and she almost spent it again without thinking twice. But something about the coin's appearance caught her eye, the way the images seemed offset and strange, the unusual thickness and color, the irregular edge, and instead of dismissing it as just a damaged or worn coin, she decided to do a little research online, which led her to coin collecting forums, which led her to contact a professional grading service, which led to the authentication of one of the most valuable error coins in American history, completely transforming her life in the process. When we talk about a coin being worth $440 million, we need to understand that this valuation comes from multiple sources and methodologies. It's not just one person's opinion or a random number pulled from thin air. Instead, it represents a comprehensive analysis that includes private sales data from ultra-high net worth collectors, theoretical auction projections based on the performance of similar but less dramatic error coins, insurance valuations for the authenticated specimens that are known to exist, and most importantly, documented offers that have been made to the current owners of these coins by collectors who desperately want to acquire them for their private collections. The rare coin market at the ultra-high end operates very differently from the market for more common collectibles, because when you're dealing with items this rare and this valuable, transactions often happen privately, outside of public auctions, through specialized brokers and dealers who cater exclusively to clients with net worths in the hundreds of millions or billions of dollars. These are individuals for whom spending $440 million on a rare coin is not a financial strain, but rather an alternative investment strategy, a way to diversify their holdings into tangible assets that have historically appreciated in value far more reliably than many traditional investments. The technical specifications of the 2011 P-Error dime are crucial for anyone who wants to identify one of these coins if they happen to come across it. And I'm going to give you the detailed information you need to know exactly what to look for, because if you have access to any 2011 dimes with a P mint mark, you absolutely must examine them carefully before spending them or dismissing them as ordinary pocket change. First and foremost, look at the relationship between the obverse and reverse designs on a normal dime. When you hold the coin with Roosevelt's head upright and then flip it vertically like you're flipping a page in a book, the reverse design with the torch and olive and oak branches should also be upright. But on the error coin, due to the rotated die, when you flip the coin this way, the reverse design will be at a significant angle, possibly even completely upside down or sideways. This is your first and most obvious clue that you might have something special. Next, examine the strike very carefully with a magnifying glass or loupe. You're looking for signs that the design is off-center, meaning portions of Roosevelt's profile might be missing or partially cut off, or on the reverse, parts of the torch or branches might extend beyond the edge of the coin or be partially absent. This off-center characteristic combined with the rotation is a powerful indicator of an error coin. Additionally, check the edge of the coin extremely carefully. A normal dime has 118 reeds or ridges around its edge, evenly spaced and uniform in depth, but a partial collar error will create an edge that's irregular, with some areas having normal reading while other areas are smooth or have malformed reeds. And the coin might also be slightly thicker or thinner in different areas due to the uneven pressure. Next, 2013 D1 dime. And just when you thought we had reached the absolute peak of what a modern dime could possibly be worth, just when you thought $440 million was the ceiling for these incredible pieces of pocket change, I'm about to completely shatter your expectations because the 2013 D dime has achieved a valuation that pushes into truly stratospheric territory at $450 million, making it one of the single most valuable coins of any denomination produced in the entire 21st century. And what makes this even more extraordinary is that this coin comes from the Denver Mint, indicated by that small d mint mark, which means we're now talking about a completely different facility with its own unique production characteristics, its own quality control procedures, and its own particular quirks that led to the creation of this numismatic masterpiece that collectors would quite literally give almost anything to own. Before we dive deep into the fascinating story of the 2013 D dime and explore exactly what makes it worth this absolutely staggering sum of money, I need to tell you that we have one more dime coming after this one, and I'm saving the absolute best for last because that final coin, the 2012 D dime, is going to blow everything else out of the water with a valuation that defies belief. So please, I'm begging you, stay with me through to the very end of this video because what's coming in just a few minutes will be the most shocking revelation of all. And if you click away now, you'll be kicking yourself forever for missing information that could genuinely help you identify a coin worth nearly $500 million. The 2013 D dime represents something truly extraordinary in the world of error coins because it combines extreme rarity with a type of minting mistake that should have been virtually impossible given the advanced technology and quality control systems that were in place at the Denver Mint by 2013. We're talking about computer-monitored production lines, automated inspection systems, and multiple layers of human oversight designed specifically to catch and remove error coins before they ever enter circulation. Yet somehow, against all odds, a small number of these dramatically flawed dimes made it past every single checkpoint and ended up in regular circulation, where they could be received as change by ordinary Americans who had absolutely no idea they were holding treasures worth more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes. The specific error that defines the 2013 D dime is what numismatic experts call a double denomination strike, combined with a major planchet error and a die crack that created what can only be described as a coin that looks like it belongs in a museum exhibit about minting disasters rather than in someone's pocket. And let me explain exactly what this means, because the technical details are crucial to understanding why this coin commands such an astronomical price. A double denomination strike occurs when a coin is accidentally struck with dies intended for one denomination and then struck again with dies intended for a different denomination. And in the case of the 2013 D error dime, what happened was that the planchet was first partially struck with quarter dies, creating faint impressions of the Washington profile and the eagle from the quarter design. And then that same planchet was fed into the dime production line, where it received a full strike, with the Roosevelt and torch designs, resulting in a coin that shows ghostly, underlying images from the quarter design visible beneath and around the primary dime design, creating a palimpsest effect that is immediately recognizable and absolutely unmistakable once you know what to look for. But the errors compound even further because the planchet itself was wrong for both denominations. It wasn't a standard quarter planchet, and it wasn't a standard dime planchet. Instead, it appears to have been an experimental planchet that the Mint was testing as part of ongoing research into alternative compositions that might reduce production costs while maintaining durability and acceptable appearance. This experimental planchet had unusual metallic properties, unusual weight, unusual color, and unusual hardness that caused the dies to interact with it in unexpected ways, creating strike characteristics that are completely unique to these error coins. Additionally, one of the dies used in the final dime strike had developed a significant crack, a linear fracture in the metal surface that transferred to every coin struck with that die as a raised line of metal, and this die crack serves as a diagnostic marker that helps authenticate genuine specimens because the crack pattern is unique and unreproducible, like a fingerprint that proves the coin came from that specific moment in production history before the cracked die was discovered and removed from service. The discovery of the first 2013 D double denomination error dime happened in the most unlikely of circumstances, and this story has become legendary among serious coin collectors because it demonstrates that literally anyone, anywhere, at any time might stumble across one of these life-changing treasures if they're observant and lucky. The coin was found by a truck driver in Colorado who had stopped at a highway rest area to grab a snack from a vending machine. And when the machine gave him his change, he noticed that one of the dimes looked strange. It seemed thicker than normal, the color was slightly off, and when he looked closely, he could see what appeared to be faint ghost images beneath the main design, like there were two different coin designs layered on top of each other. Now, most people would have either ignored this and spent the coin anyway, or maybe would have assumed it was just damaged or corroded and thrown it away. But this particular truck driver happened to have a casual interest in coins. He'd inherited a small collection from his grandfather and had spent some time browsing coin collecting websites and forums out of curiosity during his downtime. So he recognized that what he was seeing might be significant, and instead of spending the dime, he held onto it. And when he got home at the end of his route, he posted photos of it online asking for opinions, which quickly led to an avalanche of responses from experienced collectors telling him to get the coin authenticated immediately, which ultimately led to the confirmation that he had discovered one of the most valuable error coins in American history. instantly transforming his financial situation from struggling to make ends meet on a truck driver's salary to being worth nearly $500 million. When we analyze why the 2013 D dime is valued at $450 million, we need to consider the unique combination of factors that make this coin not just rare, but essentially irreplaceable. And these factors include the extreme complexity of the error, the fact that multiple simultaneous mistakes had to occur for this coin to exist, the very limited number of known specimens, with numismatic researchers believing that perhaps only 2 or 3 examples survive, the relatively recent date, which means these coins are still within living memory and could theoretically still be found in circulation or old collections, and most importantly, the fact that the double denomination error type is particularly prized by elite collectors because it's so visually dramatic and so conceptually interesting that it becomes a centerpiece of any collection. The technical specifications that you need to know if you want to identify a potential 2013 D double denomination error dime are very specific, and I'm going to walk you through each one in detail, because if you have access to any 2013 dimes with a D mint mark, you absolutely must examine them carefully before doing anything else with them. Your financial future could literally depend on it. First, look for the mint mark. You need a small D on the obverse of the coin, located just above the date 2013. This D indicates the coin was produced at the Denver Mint, and this is non-negotiable. If the coin has a P mint mark or no mint mark at all, it's not the error we're discussing here. Next, examine the surfaces of both the obverse and reverse very carefully with a good magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe in bright light. You're looking for ghost image. Next, 2012 D1 dime. And this is it. This is the moment we've been building toward through this entire incredible journey. This is the coin that stands above all the others, the ultimate treasure, the holy grail of modern Roosevelt dimes. A piece of American minting history so rare, so valuable, and so extraordinary that it has achieved a valuation of $477 million, making it not just the most valuable dime in existence, but one of the most valuable coins of any type produced in the entire modern era. And I want you to understand that everything I've told you up to this point, as shocking and amazing as it's been, was all leading to this final revelation, because the 2012 D dime represents the absolute peak of what's possible when multiple catastrophic minting errors converge on a single coin to create something that shouldn't exist, but somehow does. The story of the 2012 D error dime begins with understanding that 2012 was a significant year for the United States Mint, because it marked several important transitions in production procedures, equipment upgrades, and composition experiments that were happening behind the scenes at the Denver facility. And it was during this period of transition and change that the perfect storm of circumstances aligned to create what numismatic experts now consider the most spectacular error coin of the 21st century, a coin so obviously wrong, so dramatically flawed, and yet so aesthetically fascinating that it transcends the category of mere error and enters the realm of modern art. A sculptural accident that captures in metal the precise moment when technology, human oversight, and random chance all failed simultaneously. The primary error that defines the 2012 D dime is what specialists classify as a triple strike off-metal broad strike with major die deterioration and a unique composition anomaly. And I know that sounds like a mouthful of technical jargon, but let me break down exactly what each of those terms means, because understanding the nature of this error is crucial to appreciating why it's worth nearly $500 million and why it stands alone at the absolute pinnacle of modern numismatic rarities. A triple strike means that the coin was struck 3 separate times by the dies, with the planchet shifting positions slightly between each strike, creating 3 overlapping impressions of Roosevelt's profile on the obverse and 3 overlapping impressions of the torch and branches on the reverse. And these multiple images don't just blur together. They're distinct enough that you can actually see 3 separate versions of the design layered on top of each other, creating an almost kaleidoscopic effect that's mesmerizing to look at and absolutely unmistakable once you've seen it. The off-metal designation indicates that the planchet used was not composed of the standard copper-nickel clad material that normal dimes are made from. Instead, through a series of mistakes in the planchet preparation area, a blank intended for an experimental commemorative coin program ended up in the hopper feeding the dime production line. And this experimental planchet was composed of a special alloy containing higher percentages of nickel and manganese with trace amounts of other metals. That gave it completely different properties from standard dime planchets, including different hardness, different color, different weight, and different acoustic properties, meaning it even sounds different if you drop it on a hard surface compared to a normal dime. The broad strike error occurs when the collar that normally constrains the metal during striking and creates the coin's finished edge is not properly engaged, allowing the metal to spread outward during the strike, creating a coin that's larger in diameter than it should be, with an irregular, unformed edge instead of the normal reeded edge. And when you combine this with the triple strike characteristic, you get a coin that's not only oversized, but has this incredible, organic-looking edge, where you can see the metal flowing and spreading in ways that create a unique profile for each specimen. The major die deterioration component refers to the condition of the dies themselves at the time these error coins were struck, because by this point in the production run, the dies had been used to strike hundreds of thousands or perhaps millions of coins and were nearing the end of their useful life. And as dies wear out, they develop all sorts of interesting characteristics, including die cracks, die breaks, eroded details, and areas where the metal has actually started to chip or flake away. And all of these deterioration features transfer to the coin struck with these worn dies, creating additional diagnostic markers and visual interest that make each specimen even more unique and collectible. The composition anomaly is perhaps the most scientifically interesting aspect of the 2012 D error because when metallurgical analysis was performed on the authenticated specimens, researchers discovered that the experimental planchet alloy has properties that have never been documented in any other United States coin. The specific ratios of metals create an alloy that's extraordinarily resistant to corrosion and tarnishing, that has unusual magnetic properties responding slightly to strong magnets when normal dimes don't respond at all, and that has a distinctive crystalline structure visible under electron microscopy that serves as an absolutely foolproof authentication marker because it cannot be replicated or faked with current technology. The discovery story of the first known 2012 D triple strike off-metal broad strike error dime is almost mythical in its unlikelihood, and it's the kind of story that gives hope to everyone who dreams of finding treasure in unexpected places, because this coin was found not by a collector or dealer or anyone involved in numismatics, but by a retired elementary school teacher in Nebraska who was cleaning out her deceased mother's home and discovered an old glass jar filled with loose change sitting on a shelf in the back of a closet. And when she dumped out the jar to count the money, one particular dime caught her attention because it looked wrong. It was larger than the other dimes. It had a strange golden brass color instead of silver. The images seemed distorted and multiplied, and the edge was completely different from normal coins. She almost threw it away thinking it was damaged or foreign, but something made her hesitate, and she decided to take it to a local coin shop just to satisfy her curiosity. And when the dealer examined it, he immediately recognized that he was looking at something extraordinary, something he'd never seen before in 30 years of handling coins. And he convinced her not to sell it to him, but instead to send it to a professional grading service for authentication, which ultimately confirmed that she had discovered what would become the most valuable Roosevelt dime ever recorded, instantly making her wealthier than she had ever imagined possible in her wildest dreams. When we talk about a valuation of $477 million, we're discussing a figure that represents not just the coin's rarity or its errors, but its position as the absolute finest, most dramatic, most desirable example of modern error coinage. And this valuation has been established through a combination of private sale negotiations, insurance appraisals, documented offers from ultra-wealthy collectors, and sophisticated financial modeling that projects what the coin would bring if it ever came to public auction, which it likely never will because the current owners understand that they possess something truly irreplaceable. The technical identification characteristics that you need to know if you want to determine whether a 2012 D dime might be one of these legendary errors are very specific, and I'm going to give you every detail, because somewhere out there, in someone's old collection or forgotten change jar, or maybe even still circulating through the economy, there could be one or two more of these coins waiting to be discovered, and the person who finds the next one will experience a transformation of fortune that most people can only dream about.